I dare anyone to come up here and find a picture of Harry where he's sullen or, alone or depressed or, Harry's just exuded life about so many things. There are three Hawaiian words that really became more meaningful to me today. One is aloha. Not sure like me, I've gone to Hawaii a couple times, and aloha means hello, or goodbye, it means lots of things. But in my study for this, I found out that God is love. So as I thought about that, I thought, okay, right now is a time for us to not only think of the life that Harry lived and who he was for each of us, but also at this time to also think about what does it mean for us at a deeper level? What does it mean for Harry's life? Now, there are two other words that came to mind was ohana, which in my understanding is in the Hawaiian life is family. And ohana certainly can be blood relatives, but it's more than that. Ohana means beyond, it's just everyone who's part of the group. Kathy and I are blessed to be called auntie and uncle by the Kwai family. And the last word was aina, the land, and how much Harry loved creation, how much he loved being outdoors and all the things connected to the land. And so anyways, those are the things that went through my mind as I picked out, as I tried to select some appropriate scriptures for our meditation today. And the first one is that God is love. Aloha keakua. And from 1 John 4:16, he writes, God is love, and whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. God is love, and all who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. And then the familiar words, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, and the word in Greek is cosmos. For God so loved the cosmos, the universe. And I thought about that in terms of Harry's love for everything in creation, for his love of outdoors, for his love of the care of the land that God has given us. And to continue that verse, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. And then the ohana part, I picked the great commandment, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. And the second is like to it, love your neighbor as yourself. And the presence of you here, and I'm sure others who wish they would be here, could be here, was a sign of how much God loved his neighbor. And there was no strangers to Harry. I think we were only friends he hadn't met yet. And finally, the last passage I picked was from Romans 8. And this is in the Eugene Peterson's Message version. God knew what he was doing from the very beginning. He decided from the outset to shape the lives of those who love him along the same lines as the life of the Son. The Son stands first in the line of humanity he restored. We see the original and intended shape of our lives there in him. After God made that decision of what his children should be like, he followed it up by calling people by name. After he called them by name, he set them on a solid basis with himself. And then, after getting them established, he stayed with them to the end, gloriously completing what he had begun. So what do you think? With God on our side like this, how can we lose? If God doesn't hesitate to put everything on the line for us, embracing our condition and exposing himself to the worst by sending his own Son, is there anything else he wouldn't gladly and freely do for us? And who would dare tangle with God by messing with one of God's chosen? Who would dare even to point a finger? The one who died for us, who was raised to life for us, is in the presence of God at this very moment, sticking up for us. Do you think anyone is going to be able to drive a wedge between us and Christ's love for us? There is no way. Not trouble, not hard times, not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not bullying threats, not backstabbing, not even the worst sins listed in Scripture. They kill us in cold blood because they hate you. We're sitting ducks. They pick us off one by one. None of this phases us because Jesus loves us. I'm absolutely convinced that nothing, living or dead, angelic or demonic, today or tomorrow, high or low, thinkable or unthinkable, absolutely nothing can get between us and God's love because of the way that Jesus, our Master, has embraced us.
but they had lots of aloha. He was going to a strange new land where he would learn and see new things and meet men and boys from all around the world. And he saw his first pine tree. And he was just 16 years old. Because of Camp Pocono's experience, my dad's eyes were open to new people, mostly haoles, the big land and the vast expanse of the U.S., the cities and countryside where you could drive for miles and miles. He was fascinated by its vastness, nothing like the Hawaiian Islands. He knew that after he graduated from high school, he wanted to see more and go to college. A poster in the Honolulu library displayed jagged mountains with snowy caps. At the bottom it said the Sawtooth Mountains of Idaho, and my dad decided he had to see those mountains. He was hooked. And that's how he got to go to Boise State College in Idaho. Eventually he earned a scholarship and moved on to the University of Oregon, where he completed his master's in education. And the rest is history.
Right now, Harry's nephew, Kaloku, is going to come and sing for us.
Aloha, check 1, 2, can you hear it? Oh, that was beautiful, Jesse and Pastor. I was supposed to just play a song, but I want to tell a story if that's okay. So as they were talking about Palama Settlement, I too grew up in Kalihi, played football at Palama Settlement, and when I was at Kapalama Elementary School, and I was in the 5th grade taking these tours. There was an old man that used to come to our school and take us on these hikes as a class. And I would just stay right next to him the whole time, just asking more questions. Come to find out, it was King, okay? Grandpa King, but I knew him as Lauren Gill. Years later, me, my mom, and my brother live here in Vancouver, and Uncle Harry said, hey, we want to invite your family out to come hang out with us at Mount Hood. And we went over there. There's a guy who wants to meet you again. And it was Lauren Gill, King. And started telling this story. And he remembered me from when I was in the 5th grade. And the funny thing is how all these things interconnect. My mom was a hula teacher, Uncle Harry's cousin. And she fell in love with this song, Palehua, written by Amy Hanai Gilliam. And she would teach her hula students, and it doesn't matter what age, they all learned this song, Palehua. Come to find out, King lived up there, owned a good chunk of it. And then, as we were finding all these things out, we're like, Palehua, wait a minute, my mom teaches this song to everybody, and who owns the key? Now it's Uncle Harry. So it's really, it's kind of something special, and no one gets to go up there. And one day, me, my mom, and my auntie Vicky, Takamine, went up with him. He took us up there, and he was so proud to show us this place, Palehua. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the song and what it means to Uncle Harry, to his family, to my mom, and our extended ohana. No one gets to go up there. It's a very private mountain. And the song talks about this majestic mountain, Palehua, calling out to you. And it's so high up there on the west side of Oahu, in the Makakilo Ridge, that Vehei Kalani, it opens up in the heavens. There's also a very Pamai Kamakani. It's a soft, gentle breeze as you go up there. And because it's so high, it's very damp, it's very wet. And a brisk scent of a type of eucalyptus that thrives up there. And we're just so amazed that we got to go somewhere where no one else gets to go, and how the nahele, or the forest, it just, the aina, as Pastor said, the aina just gives back with aloha. And so I'd like to share this song with you guys. Palehua.
hua e, wahila ni hauia, e po ina ole, ke kua hiwi kaulana, vehe i ka ani. O ka wai ki e loa, o pale hua e pamai ana ka makani, i ka ulu nā he, i kuma ko i ke ala, o pale piwa. Au he a wale ana oe, o pale hua e. For Uncle Harry, here we go. E ka hea mai ana, o pale hua e, wahila ni hahui ahu, e po ina ole, e kua hiwi kaulana, vehe i ka lani. O ka wai ki e loa, o pale hua e pamai ana ka makani, i ka ulu nā hele, ulu puni mako i ke ala, o pale piwa. Au he awale ana oe, o pale hua e. Haina ia mai, ana ka puana la, e ka hea mai ana, o pale hua e, ke kua hiwi kaulana, vehe i ka lani. Haina ia mai, ana ka puana la, e ka hea mai, o pale hua e, ke kua hiwi kaulana, vehe i ka lani. Au he awale ana oe, o pale hua e. Au he awale ana oe, o pale hua e. O pale hua e. Love you, Uncle Harry.
Hey, how's it, everybody? Thanks so much for coming. It means a lot to my family. It would have meant a lot to my dad. He would love seeing all of you gather here. It's one of the upsides of an otherwise not so good occasion. The house, it's a big thing in our family. Most of you know my dad. That's how he entered the room, or whenever he showed up here. How's it? My name is Max Apana Kwai. I am the eldest son of Harry, Hassan, and Kwai. So our dad never had a lot of money, but he was truly rich. A wise friend of mine recently pointed out that if you want to know how people's lives are measured, go to funerals and listen. In memoriam, people aren't remembered so much for their careers or how much money they had or material wealth they accumulated, but the kind of lives that they led. So what you hear is how that person treated others, the quality of the relationships that they had, the acts of kindness, how they made others feel, contributions they made in their communities, unique experiences they created for others, and invaluable legacies that they passed on. If the value of a person's life can be measured in these things, then our dad was the richest person we've ever known. A rolling stone gathers no moss. This was the epitome of how our dad lived his whole life, right up to the end. The world has lost a man of warmth, love, spirit, and vitality. His passing does leave a giant hole, but also many amazing experiences and a special legacy for all that knew him. A part of me always knew that I would get the call that I did on May 15th. And I'm just glad he died in the ocean in Hawaii with his family, where he's from, and I always like to say he could not have written a better ending to his adventurous life. And it was also nice that I didn't get a call on the emergency locator beacon that my siblings and I gave him because of the way he lived his life. We were like, you better take this with you, Dad, because one of these days you're gonna get yourself in trouble. And I'll keep my go bag ready, my go find dad bag. He really did live every day to the fullest, including the day of his final adventure. And for that, I am absolutely stoked for him. He may have been taken from us early, but the manner in which he left this life was pretty cool. He's swimming in the ocean with dolphins and having an amazing day, so the lucky bugger. You hear this common theme with all of us that talk about him, aloha. He lived with aloha. Aloha is a word that gets thrown around quite a bit, but he truly epitomized living with aloha. Every day, everywhere he went, everyone he was with, he carried it with him and he spread it to everyone he knew. When he arrived on scene or came into a room, it felt to me, maybe some of you, a little warmer, a little brighter, a little more fun. Like, let's do something cool. What are you guys sitting around for? Let's do something. He was just a big kid, and he made people around him feel younger. He gave the gift of adventure. He loved to fish, for example. Everybody knows that. But what was more special to him than catching fish himself was teaching others to fish, taking them on these epic adventures. And then he would rig all the poles, set everybody up, and go sit in a chair and just enjoy having passed that torch on to these people and watching the spark ignite, that adventurous spark or some new experience that he was able to pass on. He enjoyed that more than playing himself. That was pretty cool. E malama pono. Anybody here know what that means? So everyone in my family does. In Hawaiian, it means several closely related things. But my dad's preferred interpretation was do the right thing. There are so many ways to do the right thing. But did you know there are 27.3 ways to do the wrong thing? 27.3 times as many ways to do the wrong thing. I saw my dad do both, and it was hilarious because when he decided he'd done something the wrong way, he'd say, "Oh, bruh, don't do it that way. Oh, bruh." Usually him on the ground saying that. Like the time he was casting a pretty substantial lure into a lake without looking behind him first, and the hook catch my sister Jody under the chin, just like this, and she's going like this. And he looked back and he sees that he caught my sister on her chin, needle nose pliers, and dug the hook out of poor Jody's chin, and we kept on fishing. She's got a little scar under there today. So maybe don't do it that way either. On the other side, there are countless examples of my dad doing the right thing. Malama pono. It didn't matter where he was going. He would pull over to help a person whose car was broken down on the side of the road. He'd He would pay for a person's meal whom he didn't know. He would bring drinks to complete strangers who looked thirsty. He would drop what he was doing and just run over to help somebody carry something cumbersome, groceries, heavy load, whatever. He would always stop what he was doing, didn't know how important to help somebody else. He reached out to people to include them in an experience like they would never otherwise have had. I bet there's more than a few of you here today in attendance that can attest to this yourselves. You probably saw it yourself. No one was left on the periphery in proximity to my dad. Shy people, people with language barriers, people with varying degrees of social graces. He didn't care. He wanted to include everybody. Even cantankerous, no matter how long that conversation or brief that conversation. Names. With my dad, so I've been with him in some of the most obscure places in the world. My siblings and I soon became accustomed to hearing, "Harry?" It was incredible to run into somebody who he'd met maybe in some remote wilderness location, some mountain range, some river somewhere one time, didn't see him for a decade, and then he knew their name. It was bonkers. Inevitably, somebody would pop out of the woods and say, "Harry?" I personally witnessed this on multiple occasions, but one time in Alaska, in the middle of nowhere, you had a fly-in or boat. My dad had this ability to focus with such intense attention on a person. His whole body would freeze, so you knew 100% of his attention was focused on that person and that conversation. In his eyes, he wouldn't even blink sometimes. He would just stare right into your soul. With that kind of focused attention, you would find yourself talking and talking with zero reservation and just telling him, bearing your soul to him. That light that he would shine on you felt warm and comforting and bright. It felt so good to receive that kind of attention and that level of focused interest. I really did consider that a superpower they had, because I've never seen anybody else that had that quite that thing. One of my favorite aspects of his spotlight effect was he wouldn't just sign it on the consensus important people in the room. Again, he didn't leave people on the periphery. He was a people collector, and he liked to connect people together. In some cases, even people that were naughty. He was usually a nice guy, but if he got mad, he would let you know that too, just to the face. And he would convey how he really felt. And oftentimes, what I saw was those people end up becoming his friends, if for no other reason, just to get that heat off. I personally saw him back down several bullies, guys twice his size, just with that intense light in his eyes. He would let them know he didn't really care for what they were doing or how they were treating somebody else. And you know the look, if you ever saw him, he had a really intense stare, like heat ray vision that made balloons want to pop, like very intense. And I would always think, oh, brah, that's intense right there. The rude recipients of his glare either just wanted the moment to end, to have that heat go away, or more often than not, they ended up wanting to be his friend. He respected it. If he was unhappy with somebody, though, boy, you could feel that heat. The funny thing is, he made a similar face when he was concentrating on something. You remember his scowly, concentration, scary, hairy face? Doing something, it's like, well, he looks mad. He wasn't mad. He was doing something, he was just focused. My wife, JJ, and my daughter, Sunny, constantly comment, like, hey, you're doing Papa's face. No, I'm not going to do that. Just concentrating. And then they leave, and I go, yeah, I'm totally doing that. I'm making that exact same face. Us Kwais like to laugh. We laugh at just about anything. If somebody falls down or walks into a screen door, that's funny. Sorry about your luck, but that's funny. Once we know you're okay, we're going to laugh. Sometimes so hard we forget what we're laughing about. And humor comes easily to us, but we try not to offend anybody if possible. For me and many others, it wasn't possible to be in proximity to my dad without laughing. His sense of humor and easy laughter was pretty contagious. We would laugh so hard that our stomachs and throats would ache, which would cause us to laugh harder. I'm sure more than once a bystander I considered giving him Heimlich maneuver, thinking he was choking. He was having the time of his life, he was just laughing. I do that too. I've been told I laugh, cry, walk, sneeze, cough, make the stupid scowling face, just like my dad. There's an easy argument to be made about traits, genetics, DNA. They get passed on from father to son, but the truth is I just wanted to be just like him. A Filipino verb my wife found in a book when we were cleaning out his house, in his Ohana book, says, "Tell me who your father is, and I will tell you who you are." I will continue to strive for that, Pops. In closing, please carry on his legacy. For those who have offered to help our family, thank you very much. And I'll tell you, the greatest thing you can give us is to carry on our dad's legacies of living with aloha, take care of people, especially those in need, forgotten by others. Malama pono, do the right thing. We all know what that is. We know what the right thing is. And last, don't let your butt get stuck to the couch because adventure is out there. If you agree to this sort of verbal contract, then you get a shaka. Yeah, that's the one.
Hey Max, you know your dad really well. Yeah, you got it right on the head. When I walked into this park, you could feel the breeze, right? Feel the warmth. Almost feels like Hawaii. And you can see the people laughing. We're greeting old friends, hugging. And I'm 100% sure I can hear Harry say, "Isn't this great?" Yeah, right, Jody? But I'm getting off script here. Aloha and ikamamai to the Kwai ohana from Hawaii and elsewhere, and the Oregon ohana. It's we're all here because Harry built this network of people, and I'm sure he introduced a lot of us to each other, and for that we can be pretty grateful. I met Kim when I started working at Clackamas Community College. When we found out that we both lived in Canby, this was back in the mid-70s sometime, we started carpooling, and we did that for a couple of weeks. Harry and I grew up the high school years. We went to rival high schools. We surfed and we body surfed and swam at the same beaches. We had some common friends, and we did not meet until we got to Canby. Kim introduced us in the parking lot at Cutsports Thriftway. Thank you, Frank and Kevin. It was great. We quickly bonded over, of course, fishing. You all know that, of course, and food. We both missed the local Hawaiian food, the various ethnic foods of Hawaii, and we also really enjoyed speaking Pidgin English, which in Canby is really rare. Okay, we couldn't. In our real life, we spoke good English. But when we were together, we kind of relaxed a little bit. Oops, I skipped the page. I don't know, is Charlie and Diane Lamb here? Oh, perfect. You got it? Okay. After a couple weeks, I introduced Carrie to Charlie and Diane Lamb. And over the years, we spent many, many years celebrating Christmas together, watching our kids grow up. Sometimes we enjoyed it, sometimes we didn't. You know how it is, right? There were poker games. We helped each other in home projects. And it took us a long time, but after a while, we kind of tolerated Charlie's jokes and his groaners. You all know that too. One year, the Chamber of Commerce decided to give Harry an award for his volunteer civic activities. And they invited the whole community to the Canby Fairgrounds. Well, let me preface that with Charlie, Harry, and I were the only guys in Canby with black hair. And we were not tall. And people would confuse us. They would go up to Charlie and say, "Hey, Harry." And Charlie would give them a 2-minute lecture. Or somebody would approach Harry and say, "Hey, Eric," and he would quickly get corrected. Okay? Charlie got this idea that at the ceremony that the Chamber of Commerce was putting on, he would make a t-shirt for each of us. So we each wore this t-shirt to this very large crowd, and here's mine. You have yours, Charlie? Can't find it. You can imagine what his said, and you can imagine what Harry's shirt said. Max, did you find it in your cleanup? Found the picture? Okay. Your dad probably wore it painting the living room, and it's all got out. That's okay. Well, Harry got this award because, as you all know, he had this great ability to bring people together and to organize things and to get the idea in the first place to improve on things. And it really helped the city of Canby. So please think back 45 years ago and raise your hand if you ever sat in a meeting in Canby with Harry. Any kind of a meeting. Okay? How about if you went to Kim and Harry's house for a church function? For a Bible study? To eat Kim's good cooking? Gotcha. She really learned to cook Asian foods really fast and really well. And so it was really enjoyable for us. Raise a hand if you went to Sierra Leone with Harry and Kim. I don't expect to see too many hands. Yeah, okay, Pastor Tim did. Okay. You went there, they made a couple trips, didn't they? Yeah, to help the church over there. And then there are the many outdoor experiences. You love the outdoors and spent a lot of time out there. And I knew that if Harry asked me to go with him, we would not be together alone. He always had a group with him. And he loved organizing. He loved organizing and sharing his experiences. Has anybody paddled or fished with Harry on the Molalla River? Yeah. Willamette River. Max is going to run up all the time. The Deschutes River. The John Day. Bobby, raise your hand. Okay. The Trask, the Tillamook for salmon. Moose Creek in Alaska was a good one. Fishing in Montana. This is really great. The last few years we got into biking. In fact, last year we bought e-bikes, and Harry and I just went all over the place. Anybody remember biking in Coeur d'Alene? I know some of you are out there. Vernonia Banks Trail, or the Springwater Trail, or weekly rides in Canby.
there are so many things to remember and so many good things. And I think we can all say together that to Harry, we can say, mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much. Aloha, bro.
Welcome, everybody. It's so cool to see all of you here, and I want to thank you so much for sharing your life with our dad and for letting him share his life with you. My name is Jody. I'm the eldest of the 4 kids and obviously the shortest. I don't know how many of you know, but my dad and I actually had a separation for about 12 to 15 years. It was probably the hardest time of my life, and because he was my childhood hero, to be honest with you. And it was a really, really tough time. But my point is, and I'm gonna make this as short as I can, we reunited. And it was the best thing that could ever happen to both of us. After all that time, both of our hearts had healed, and this happened at Sherry's restaurant in Oregon City. My dad brought flowers, and he was hesitant at first. I was super excited. I knew it was gonna go well. I wanted it to. And just despite all of our history and pains and anything that we'd gone through, he sat back at first and then gave that intensity that my brother Max was talking about. He sat forward, and I automatically sat forward. And I grabbed his hands and I said, Dad, I love you. I'm not who you think I am. Let's go forward from here. Let's do this. And we both wanted that so much that we did. We just moved on from there. I can honestly say that if my dad were here right now, he would completely encourage you, if you have a broken relationship of any kind, to repair it. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, he would say. Do it now. This is the time. Now, there are blessings that have happened to me as a result of that I never could have thought of, never. One of them was when he passed, he had been planning a trip to the Bob Marshall Wilderness in Augusta, Montana for a couple of years. He had been on a waiting list and finally found a spot. When I found out about it, I said, can I go with you? I wanted to go with him. I wanted to go with him desperately. When he passed in Kona on May 15th of this year, I felt this longing to want to finish this trip for him. I was hoping, I asked my brothers and my sister, somebody's got to finish this trip for him. I'm really glad they said, I know you do it. But now it was a different trip. Now it was doing this for Dad. This wasn't going to be the same trip. This wasn't going to be with him, which I jumped at every chance to spend time with him since our reunion. So this particular trip, I didn't really know what I was in for, and that's probably a good thing. The whole time was rugged, hot. One day was 118 degrees. It's dirty. Being outside all the time. It's just rugged, okay? And I honestly loved every minute of it, to be honest with you, because my dad was everywhere. I was able to take some of his ashes, and he's all over that wilderness, let me tell you. Everywhere I went. We did horseback about 101 miles in 7 days and hiked about 26 miles. And I could just hear him everywhere. Everywhere I could hear him. Right? So beautiful. Look at that. You know, he was everywhere. I could hear him laughing. I could hear us joking. He was everywhere. And there were moments that were just unbelievable to me, where I could hear him kind of talking to me. But the point is that there are blessings when you reunite with someone. You don't even know how many there are for you. You don't know what they are, but they're awesome, they're good. And even if you try to reconnect, your conscience can be clear because you've made that effort. I don't know why I'm saying this so much, but I just feel like my dad would want you to know that. And I'm speaking for both of us that it's been such a blessing. There's so much for you. Maybe like those trips, but there's blessings, many, many blessings for you. So I encourage you to fix any relationship. It might be a little bit broken. Make that effort.
How's it, everyone? Aloha. My name is Mervyn Lee Kwai. I'm the youngest of the boys in the family. Before we get into some of the family history, which I was going to do, the nice thing about being the last person to speak is this is now 2 sentences. It's been covered by most everybody, but you know, like Pastor Eric first went ahead and talked about the word aloha. It's worth repeating, I think. Aloha has a lot of meanings. It's very deep for us. It is a welcome, means hello. It also can mean goodbye, a farewell. But probably the deepest meaning is love and all that goes with it. Warmth, kindness, a deep caring. That was Harry, right? He loved to live aloha. And if you leave today, that is kind of the message. I'm glad I'm not the only old school one. I see everybody coming up with notes like this. I thought it'd be computers and so forth and so on, but it's nice to see. So let me tell you a little bit about our family. Mervyn and Dorothy are our parents. They had 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. Harry was the oldest, #1 son, and believe me or not, he was treated kind of that way. But he deserved it. He was a rambunctious kalohe kid. Kalohe means playful, right? And then was my brother Ronald, followed by my oldest sister, Kai Lianu Victoria. You stand just a second. Next was another sister named Cynthia, who passed away at a very young age. Then myself. And very last but not least, our baby sister, Sylvia. At the end of this, please, if you have a second, just come up and tell us your little story about Harry. We'd love to hear it since we missed out. I'm kind of jealous. I see everybody here, and you know, we knew Harry for that period that he grew up in Hawaii, but then you became his ohana. And man, it's overwhelming. Mahalo nui loa. So you heard that before. That means thank you very much. And appreciate you coming. So my memories first memories as a child of a home was a place called 1235C Pua Lane. That was the address. I describe this as a very large brick building, block building, cement, rectangular in shape, and it was cut into 12 apartment homes, you want to call them. Very humble. We came from very humble beginnings. My mom had 6 kids in 7 years. She was very busy. Dad was worked in a lumber yard, and so we didn't have much. But what we did have, and the great thing about living in Mayorite's housing is its proximity to Palama Settlement. You've heard some people speak about this place. It was, I guess you could say it's like a Boys and Girls Club on a grand scale. We all learned to swim there. We all learned to play sports and was exposed to all the programs we had. A lot more privileges. There's 5 years difference between Harry and I. And as you know, when you're a child, even through your high school years, 5 years is a huge deal, right? When Harry graduated from high school, I was in 8th grade. So there wasn't that connection there. But Harry, as you heard from the report that Jesse gave, met Lauren Gilder. And Lauren changed his life. He was a mentor, he was a life coach, he was a father figure, and just a lifelong friend to not just Harry, but the family, Harry's family.